It's a startling statistic every time you hear it. The United States has less than 5% of the world's population, but close to 25% of the world's prison population. That alone is perhaps the most damning evidence that our prison system is broken. And one organization that is trying to do something to spread awareness and fix this problem is Beyond Bars, which describes itself as part of the national movement to curb mass incarceration. They've recently completed a short documentary titled Redemption of the Prosecutor, which tells the tale of former Tennessee prosecutor Preston Shipp and his journey of self-discovery about his role in the failing prison system.
How can I reconcile the job I was being asked to do as a prosecutor with my faith in Jesus, who came proclaiming release for prisoners?
I had a chance to sit down with Mr. Shipp, as well as the campaign director of Beyond Bars, Jesse Lava. We are pleased now to be joined by the campaign director for Beyond Bars and producer of Redemption of the Prosecutor, Jesse Lava, and the subject of the film, former prosecutor and now professor at Lipscomb University, Preston Shipp. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time this evening.
Thank you for
having us.
Thank you. Preston, I'd like to begin with you. You mentioned in the clip we just played and throughout the film how your faith is what caused you to challenge your role as a prosecutor. Can you explain the role your faith had in this transformation?
Yes. My faith, I think my perspective on my faith was changing while my perspective on the criminal justice system was changing. I began to rethink the notion that our faith is mostly about what happens to us after we die, and instead began thinking in terms of our faith is what causes us to live well right now. And a big part of that has to do with caring for and being present to people who are despised and marginalized and victims of injustice. I think that we're called by our faith to go be with those people and work on their behalf.
That is pretty much the way Jesus spelled it out in Matthew 25. Let me ask, sir, what do you hope people will take from this film?
Several things. I hope that they will also start to think more seriously about Matthew 25. In Matthew 25, we don't hear a list of doctrines that you need to ascribe to or give your intellectual assent to. We hear about we need to go be with people who are hurting, who are hungry, who are in prison, who are sick. But more specifically, I would like for people to become more educated about the problem of mass incarceration and the criminal justice system. Right now there's a lot of ignorance and people are afraid of people who have committed crimes, and when you put fear and ignorance together, it's a recipe for disaster. And so I hope that this will start a conversation about how broken the system is and what needs to be done to fix it.
Well, Jesse, let me bring you in, because Preston's story is obviously based in Tennessee, but as you know, this is clearly a national problem. If mass incarceration is failing, what's a better system that could be put in its place?
We could have a much bigger commitment to rehabilitation and crime prevention. Right now, the United States spends more than $200 billion a year locking people up, once you count cops and courts. If we took a fraction of that money and invested it in prevention programs, rehabilitation programs, community supervision, taxpayers would be a lot better off because they're not paying to have people behind bars, and our streets would be safer. And meanwhile, families wouldn't be ripped apart by mass incarceration. Right now, 2.7 million children have a parent behind bars. And so if we want to stop dividing families and instead have stronger communities, we need a new approach.
So what do you say when people come out and say, but we want to put bad guys in jail, lock them up? That's the American motto, isn't it?
Sure, it is, and I think fear drives an awful lot of our criminal justice policy. Politicians want to look tough on crime, so they strut around saying tough things. But the reality is public safety would be a lot better served if we cared about rehabilitation, if we cared about, say, job programs so that people don't have to commit crimes or don't want to commit crimes, say, in the first place. And taxpayers would be better off, too. So if you think about cost effectiveness, both in terms of the taxpayers' wallets and in terms of safe streets, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to have a system that's based on retribution instead of based on safety.
Preston, can you tell us what you learned when you actually went into the prisons and began teaching classes?
One of the main lessons that I learned by being with prisoners is that nothing happens in a vacuum. Crimes are not committed in a vacuum. And as a prosecutor, I think that I kind of had blinders on and assumed that when someone commits a crime, you know, they're an autonomous individual, they're just freely choosing to break the law, and they should be held accountable and accept the consequences. But when you go out there and you meet these people, you find out that what you're dealing with is a mere snapshot of the worst moment of their lives. And there's a whole human context there that if you neglect that, there's no way to really know what needs to happen in the situation. When you just slap a label on someone based on a terrible thing that they've done without addressing some of the underlying circumstances, the abuse, the drug addiction, prior victimization, and things of that nature, then you really do, it lends itself to just a pure spirit of retribution like Jesse was saying. And that's not getting us anywhere. I mean, when you only ask what crime was committed and who's responsible and what's the punishment going to be, you're not asking what do the main parties in the crime, the offender and the victim, what do they need to move forward? How do we bring about healing for these individuals and as a community? And so, you know, that was a huge lesson for me, that you have to listen to people's stories.
Jesse, we're almost out of time, and I wish we had more. I could talk to you guys about this all night. I mean, we used to call prisons penitentiaries, where men went to be penitent, and now they're cages. But I would ask you the one question, Jesse. What would you say to people who say that the system's not broken, that a for-profit prison system is doing exactly what it's designed to do, making money for the guys who own the prisons?
I guess then I'd ask the public to ask, what's more important to you? Money for the people who run the prisons and the people who provide services to the prisons, or having safe streets? I mean, if the only constituency in America was people who profit off of mass incarceration, sure, no problem. But if we actually want safe streets, we want taxpayers to have something that's cost effective, and we want families to stay together, then we have about the worst possible system that you can imagine.
Right on. Campaign director for Beyond Bars and a producer of Redemption of the Prosecutor, Jesse Lava, and Preston Shipp, the subject of Redemption of the Prosecutor. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time this evening and your powerful service on this issue. You guys are real patriots, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.